Going, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of the Stupid Questions podcast. Today on the pod, we're going to be talking with Craig McFarland, who also goes by the name Oscar in the endurance world. He is a strength and conditioning coach with an amazing story who has worked in the professional rugby world, in the professional sailing world, and also with professional triathletes and athletes alike. He has just a really cool story that we get to dive into today. One thing that I didn't know a lot about before doing this episode was the sailing, and it is quite amazing. He's worked with the best sailors in the world, having done multiple America's Cups as physical performance manager with the Oracle Team USA. Currently is the performance consultant for the Danish and US Sail GP teams. So make sure to go check that out. It's a really interesting sport. So without further ado, I want to introduce you to my now friend, Craig or Oscar McFarlane. Really quick before we get back to the show, just wanted to say that we have episode 100 coming up. I can't even believe that. And we are going to do things a little bit different for that episode. I'm going to give you guys the opportunity to interview me and ask me some questions. So if you have some questions you would be interested in asking, you can check the show notes link in the description. It will take you to a Google form where you can add any and all and as many questions as you would like to. I will compile a list and hopefully go through as many of those questions as I can for that episode. So if you're interested in that, check out the link. Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy today's show. So whereabouts are you at?
So I moved down to Miami 3 months ago.
Okay.
A bit of a story like yours. So I was up in Newport, Rhode Island for the last 7 years, at least 7 years, yeah. So I just did that change. Like it's a really nice place. I don't know if you've been. It's a destination city. A lot of tourists go in the summer, and it's population's X10, kind of unbearable. But it's just very small. Diversity non-existent, culture minimal, food options. So it's very New York yacht club white kind of. If that makes sense. So having lived in London for 8 years and San Francisco for a period, and I needed more than that. This little Kiwi. So.
Yeah, that's amazing. So if down in Miami, it's so funny. I was listening to a podcast yesterday and they said something funny, and I'm going to butcher it. I can't remember exactly, but it's like Miami is what did they say? Miami is like, I can't remember what they said, but it's like the capital of the Latino world in America. And then, it's like totally different kind of feel and vibe down there.
Yeah. Do you speak Spanish?
I don't. I can understand very minimal Spanish. But enough, I think, to like kind of grab what's going on. Do you speak it?
No, so I'm the minority here. So I'm going to fast track learning it. It's an example. Just before I arrived back here, I just picked up some groceries from a local supermarket around the corner, and the poor lady behind the counter could not speak English, obviously, and she was just trying to talk to me and help me out, and going, I have no idea what you're saying. So that's happened more than once. But I need to upgrade, level up.
Yeah. How long, you said, have you been down there? Like, it's not very
3
long.
months, but I've been traveling for work in and out. So literally the last week and a half, I'm proper down here, and it's between this place called Coconut Grove, which is on Key Biscayne, beautiful, and Brickell, which is like the heart of Miami. So it's in between. So it's like a 7-minute Vespa ride to Coconut Grove and 5 minutes to Brickell, so I get the best of both worlds.
Yeah. How's the living situation down there? Are you in an apartment, or did you end up buying a place? Or?
Yeah, not yet. So I got a good mate. He's got a 1-bed studio. I could give you a tour if you want, but so this will do to until April, May, which is kind of the sailing season sort of quietens down. Then I'll figure out if I want to go to something bigger and where. Yeah. It's a great spot. It's kind of turnkey. So just looking at storage solutions now. So still bringing stuff down, muling stuff down from Newport. Got other, bigger equipment up in storage, but you know how it goes. It's a mission, mate. We accumulate so much shit. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because like I said, we just moved here to Redding, California, but for the prior years of being married, now we've been married for 7 years, and So we were living in a tiny home, which is like literally, it's one of those novelty ones where it's like, I think it was 30 feet by 8.5 feet. So we're living in less than 300 square feet. We did that for 6.5 years to kind of pay our way through grad school, get through my school debt. And so now we've moved into this house that we're renting, but literally we could fit 5 or 6, no, almost 10 of my houses like in this thing. And so we're like, what do we do with all this space? And we're like, oh, we have to buy things. And we're like, nah, we'll just keep it super minimal. Like if we need a trash can, we'll get a trash can, but we're so used to being so small. So it's so different. So hopefully I don't start to accumulate stuff, but I imagine if we ever move back east, it's going to be a bit more intense.
Yeah, no, that's a good grounding. Minimalistic.
Yeah, for sure.
Apart from the guitar.
So,
yep.
Yeah, exactly. I put that on there because I do play, and I wanted to, like, this is going to be the studio, which obviously it's very minimal at the moment, but I do want to like paint it and start hanging some stuff up. I got some really cool artwork that my dad painted over the years as a kid, and like I want to throw that stuff up on the wall, so it should be fun.
Epic. Pumped.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm stoked. So you said you're Kiwi, so you're from New Zealand. Were you born and raised there?
Yep, Kiwi boy who escaped the shores.
Talk to me about it. Yeah, talk to me about that.
Yeah, no, interesting. So my parents like traveled a lot when I was younger, and I've always been a curious kid, right? So New Zealand's so far away from the world, and I call the world Europe. Pretty much just where the history is. So you grow up watching TV from England and the US and movies and stuff like that. There's something further out there could be bigger and better. So that plus the travel I have with the parents, it's like, okay, I need to do something to do my OE, we call it. So when you leave New Zealand for a couple of years, experience Europe, maybe work over there, then you come back in and settle your roots in New Zealand. So it took me a while to figure that one out. So in a nutshell, after high school, then you go into university. I didn't really know what I wanted to study exactly. So I backpacked around Europe, lived in Australia for a bit, and I figured it out. So I rang my mum up and said, can you enroll me in these two degrees in the University of Otago? I'm coming home in 3 months. So that was the end of that. So did my 5 years at uni, then went straight into professional rugby as a strength and conditioning coach for, I'm not sure if you're familiar with rugby union, but it's the national sport in New Zealand. Although it's quite well known. So I got landed a pretty good gig with the Hurricanes, which is, the who's who of world rugby, not just New Zealand. So people like Jan Lomu, Christian Cullen, Tana Umanga, Jerry Collins. So that was a good induction with, one of the world's best teams and players. So 3 years there, did my grounding, and then I went going to head over to Europe finally. So get a gig over there.
So what was that graduation like? Because you're into endurance sport now, and I don't imagine that was always what you wanted to do. Like you said, you went and backpacked across Europe. What was your upbringing like, even prior to high school, that kind of you think laid the foundation for the man you are to become?
Yeah, I played every sport under the sun. Just loved it, and I was happy, really good at two sports, cricket and rugby, but I chanced my hand at anything. I was pretty competitive, captain most of my sports. You get injuries along the way, and for sure, I think the ACL reconstruction I had and a couple other knee issues like that exposed me to high-level physical therapy, what they could do, bring an athlete back from being injured back to optimal shape again. That interests me a lot because the average person would have to do a lot of work themselves. Have to think about their programming holistically on the strength conditioning, how you work in your rehab stuff, and how you manage your phases. So that floated my boat. So for sure, it's like physical therapy or applied sports science, exercise physiology. That was the path. Nutrition was definitely a big aspect. So I was aware of that at a young age, and I strength trained when I was probably 14, which is kind of young back then because I'm an old bugger. Had some good mentors, and I was always a couple of years ahead of my grade in rugby. So the big fellas looked after me, and so I hung around with them and learned how to lift from the the sawdust old school gym goers. But I was always been fit, playing a shitload of sports. So that was my grounding there. Piqued my interest.
For sure. Was that influence of getting into sports from a young age? Was that influenced by your parents?
Oh, for sure. I mean, you're born and you're throwing a rugby ball straight out of the womb pretty much. And, the old man, he loved his basketball, his rugby, his cricket. So, of course, you look up to him. And not saying I played basketball, but definitely rugby and cricket. Yeah. And then you come across these other sports. So volleyball was a big one. Rowing, we were like literally 200 meters from the rowing club. So we lived on a river. Field hockey, softball. So a rounded sort of group of sports. Did gymnastics, which I
Okay.
think for me, if I could tell kids these days and how to athletically develop, I'd go gymnastics and wrestling. Have a crack at them at a young age. What you learn from
Yeah.
body awareness and like your strength and mobility, and it goes a long way and transfers to a lot of sport.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say that's probably one of the things. So I'm not a professional athlete, but a leisurely athlete in the triathlon space. And I did for 2 or 3 years in high school and then a year in college, did gymnastics as part of an acrobatics team. And man, learning so much. I did a lot of the handstand work, and I thought I was relatively strong until I got on there and saw these guys doing presses up on blocks and breaking blocks and landing back on their hands and learning to do that. It was an amazing experience because it's just such a, like you said, body awareness to figure out like, oh, my toes aren't being pointed. I need to focus on pointing my toes while I'm like holding my life, up in the air. It's pretty amazing, those different types of sports that
Yeah.
require this things.
Landing mechanics, that reactive stiffness you get, so you're not sort of losing power. Translatable to bike, swim, run, you name it. Yeah. But university, I did a year of triathlons. You have to do these practicals, right? And the university I went to, so gymnastics was another one. Dance, that was compulsory.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And then I did a triathlon, so it was brutal, but good. I learned a lot. As you grow up, you think you can swim. Especially I think Kiwis and Australians are pretty confident in the water, right? But technically, I couldn't swim, right? I'd have to stop every couple 100 meters, be a bit gas, and go again. So one of my roommates, she was a national ranked age group swimmer and triathlete in New Zealand. So she used to drag her asses up to like 6 a.m. Swim lessons for her. And technically, I learnt how to swim proficiently and efficiently to a point where I could do 3K non-stop. So that was a big achievement for me.
Yeah.
Because
That is huge.
Yeah, like I grew up on a running sport, so that was ticked off, and bike for cross training, so that's kind of ticked off. But swimming was an eye-opener, how technically that could change your efficiency and performance.
Yeah, I think for me with swimming, I love swimming. I didn't start actually like swimming laps until probably 2.5 years ago. And I do pride myself a little bit on the ability to like quote unquote feel the water. I think I pick it up a little quicker than other people. But one thing I think that was like the hugest thing for me with being able to swim further is when I first started doing it, it was like a constant state of panic that you live in because you're like, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. And that's all you can think about. And like pretty soon, like you're not taking deep breaths, you're not relaxed. So it's like if I could give that out as a gem to people just to learn how not to panic, because like that's translatable across so many different spheres of life. Because if you can realize and have the awareness to figure out, oh, I'm like tensing up because I'm afraid something bad's going to happen. Same with cycling. You can get in a lot of trouble if you have that mindset. So what helped you to kind of learn how to relax and like to be able to do 3K?
Yeah, so breathing, bilateral efficiency. And the big one was I must have been sort of all over the shop like a snake when I swam. So Anna, her name is, she should imagine swimming through the longest pipe you could imagine. You just fit in. And just think that length and along the center line. So me being centered helped massively. But for sure, breathing, number one.
Yeah.
I mean, focusing on being centered. So just tilting your head down a bit, got your ass up a bit because I was heady-wegged playing rugby. Little tidbits like that.
Yeah.
And a 50-meter pool, not a 25-yard pool you have here in America, which is an abundance.
Yeah, it's everywhere. So I like the pool that we have here now because it's outdoor and heated. But yeah, it is 25 yards. I had the first couple of experiences out in Tucson with some guys getting to swim some 50-meter long course stuff, and it just changes the dynamic for swimming so much when you can focus for longer.
Yeah, and actually on your point regards to swimming helping, like your biking, breathing, being just calm. I do a lot of water work in many sort of forms with the sailors I train because they're not naturally good in the water. They're not natural swimmers. So just getting in the classic, comfortable and uncomfortable has profound effect on them. So, I try and get them to like go to a master's class to learn how to swim, learn how to behave in the water. So I think there's really good crossover there, really.
Yeah. Yeah. So not to diverge too much from this topic because I want to come back to it, but we talked a little bit about your dad and the influence he played there. What was your mom like, or what is your mom like?
Oh, she's very social. she was quite sporty, probably more sporty than Dad. She's a really good netballer, actually, and did some athletics. She's fast twitch. Yeah, so no, she was fun. So so I had from both sides. Like the time she was still playing netball when I was growing up, but most of her roles at that point was revolving around. She was a kindergarten teacher as well as a mother, so she was a busy lady. So sport took a backward step, you could say.
Yeah,
so she
for sure.
so she got that out in the weekends on the social life after a couple of beers.
Yeah.
Dancing on the tables,
Yeah.
Kiwi
Is that
mum.
where your love for dancing came from? Like you said, you were curious with dancing?
Dancing, yeah. I'm horrible. Unless I've had a few, drinks, I'm good. Everyone thinks they're good after a few drinks. Yeah.
Confidence is a beautiful thing. When you have the confidence to do something, it really creates a show for, I think, anybody.
Fake it till you make it.
Yeah, exactly. So siblings, do you have siblings?
One of each, both older.
Okay.
Yeah, they're.
What kind of influence have they played on your life outside of sport even?
Yeah. Brother was a great role model. He was a very good cricketer. Sister was very good at field hockey. So it's interesting to say that he's like close to 4 years older than me. So growing up, that's a big age gap. So we weren't close as you'd imagine an older brother, younger brother to be. But when I was playing in his teams, he was captain the cricket team a lot. So 100% full respect of how he captained. His dedication for the sport was phenomenal. Really good leadership skills, which I took on board. So he understood culture and people very well, and what that means in many levels. So, there's some good take-home messages. And it wasn't until I left home and he was already away from home that we become really tight as a brother and sister, as siblings, brother and brother, you could say. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sister in the middle, we're always going to be close. So she was probably sporty out of the two. My brother was a bit of an introvert. He was always slightly overweight, bit of a softie. So rugby wasn't his sport when it comes to contact. But, he dabbled in a lot of things. He did play a bit of volleyball, tried rowing. I'll give him that. He had a crack at most sports. Yep. So, but his dedication and how he behaved as a captain and leader on the cricket pitch was for sure I learned a lot from. A good mentor there.
Yeah, for sure. Are you still pretty close with them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're both from Australia, unfortunately. Got two kids each, but like brothers or guys, you don't have to speak to them like every day or every week. Every couple of months we'll get on the blower and have a good chat, and nothing's changed.
Yeah. Because you travel so much with work and situation, do you have the opportunity to go home for holidays and things like that and go see them?
Yeah. So I was in Australia and Sydney in February this year. Okay. So I had the week leading up to the event, and then I stayed on an extra week. They live in Perth, Australia, which is on the western side. So they flew over, my brother and sister, and my niece was in Sydney actually. So it was good to catch up with them for a week. And we hadn't seen each other properly for, sister about 7-8 years.
Wow.
Yeah, my brother for about 13, 14 years. It was my old man's funeral actually. So
wow.
Yeah, so that was a pretty special moment.
Sure. How are you doing post, like you said, you lost your father? I'm sure that's a big shift in life. How are you doing after that?
The parents one's interesting. I'm good. Absolutely. You celebrate the good memories of life and that. And, like anyone, it takes you have your own journey of grief, right? Someone could be 10 days, some could be 10 years. So I think it took me a good year to figure out, I need to deal with this. Something's up. I didn't really talk about my parents much at all during that year post-death. And then I knew that was unhealthy. I've got this amazing box of all these great memorabilia and photos I brought back from the funeral. The box is still in the corner. I left it for a year. It's I walk past it. It's come on, something's up here. So, so come across a really good life coach, actually, just to delve into a wee bit. And we connected really well. I think for any therapist or someone who's going to help you out, I think the first thing is connecting with that person. And then you can have more transparent conversations and be more comfortable with them. So I was lucky to connect with this lady, and that was a good kickstart. So
did you come to the realization on your own that something's not right, because you did?
Yeah, it wasn't hard. It's I think every time I walked past that box, it was a reminder. You look at some of your behavior patterns, and as I said, when anyone brought up topics about my parents, I'd digress the subject pretty quickly. And I'm a really open, honest person. Like, I don't mind going into detail if I'm comfortable with someone. Like, I'm, pretty transparent. So I don't mind telling a yarn, but I was just closing people off. Yeah, and New Zealand's interesting. It's a bit like Australia. You have tall poppy syndrome. You have people who sort of, put themselves up there and it'd be brought back down, but you have the stoicness and the hardness of not sort of presenting your feelings, not talking about your feelings. Don't be seen to cry. It's like, a sign of weakness. So back in that day when I was growing up, I was fully aware of it, but I knew it was not right. Yeah, and I captain most of my team, so I can understand that type of person within a team, right? And rugby's a subculture of that, so it's just personified. So, it wasn't until I left New Zealand when I was in London for 8 years that, I realised that was, completely wrong. You see a completely different population and culture, how they behave to sort of, any sign of like injuries or right through to death and, breaking up with your partner. So, but they're not afraid to talk about it, which I think's super important. The awareness is out there now. It's fine. Probably still needs a bit of work, but it's a lot better these days.
I think just on an international scale even.
Yeah. Mental health's huge.
Yeah. It's an important thing to be able to talk about. It is uncomfortable, but what I've found is like the more vulnerable you can be, and don't get me wrong, I think that there's appropriate times and inappropriate times to share information, but in the right set and setting, to use a kind of a buzz phrase, you can have, I think, some of the biggest unlocks for mental performance, physical performance, just overall longevity in life. Because as soon as we can let go of some of that stress, like I think it has like a very chemical reaction going on inside with the body and how you're able to absorb it. Probably even, this isn't totally a theory, but even the way that you like absorb nutrition and food, I bet that there's some connection with how you're feeling and how you can eat that food and like how then it gets applied to your body. That's a huge
gut-brain axis. It's been researched. It's there for sure. No, stress is a silent killer. I've got to say, like, you got to manage that shit. Put it in context and figure it out. But it's there for a reason. You just got to let it, not get hold of you. You got to accept it and find out your coping strategies and be open to it. Super interesting.
Yeah, it is super interesting. So I'm curious with your line of profession and the things that you've done, working with high profile athletes, parts of different teams, where there's a lot on the line. Whenever you have come across someone, because obviously your lane is the strength and conditioning, but you can have this awareness to see that these people have an issue that maybe transcends just a strength issue. It could be a mental issue. How do you navigate like working with that type of a person if they're kind of closed off?
Yeah, I think it's first being aware that they've got an issue potentially. So if you have a good relationship with your cattle, your athletes, if I say in a team situation, for example, and during the first protocol, this athlete will walk into the strength room or performance room, and you can just see how they walk in, how they carry themselves. The energy is just coming off them. So without going through, what's your whoop data, HRV, or how'd you sleep last night, all these questionnaires, test your piss, you can just tell up. The thing is you can have an honest conversation, right? So you put your hand over your shoulders and if they have respect for you and that you have a pretty good rapport with that athlete and coach rapport, you'll get a pretty good conversation. So it might be sleep like shit, or girlfriend dumped you last night, or lost some a couple of thousand on the horses, whatever it might be. You can figure that out. Give them like, okay, do you want a hug? We bump tap or something, or a coffee, and then get them training again, or you just change their plan accordingly based on their energy levels. So you got to, I think a good coach falls, if you look at like your psychometric testing or personalities, and then a good coach will fall pretty much central. And then you can handle all these different personalities of athletes you work with a lot better. Secondly, understanding of, social awareness or social intelligence, emotional intelligence, how they sort of play out, just being aware there, I think will help conversations go a lot better. Because you need the empathy, you got to listen, but you also need the answer for that person. What is the work on from there? Where do we go from here? So we just keep pushing hard. Do we pull back if it's in the gym? What's your swim session like? You got a bike in 2 days. How can we prepare for that better? Is this a wasted day? Should we just take a recovery? Yeah, so being able to read the athlete then to maybe adjust the plan. It's not a big adjustment, generally speaking. So it's trying to not fix someone on the spot, figuring out what it is. They might just want a good chat, talk about it. And that's our roles generally as strength and conditioning coach. You're intermediary to, the directors of sport and then the athletes, right? You sit in the middle, you filter information to the coaches and the directors based on the athletes, but you don't give them the whack because they don't know the context. Get a hold of the information back and, I think you sit in the middle of the life coach half the time. Even though sometimes you'll have a physio session, right? You'll be on the table and you probably want to chat with this person like forever, potentially. Because you want to talk about something.
Yeah. There needs to be a dual professions. Yeah, I think that most people should probably go through a level of like psychology training when it comes to sport, because like you said, I think that a couple of things, what you said earlier, like there's a level of awareness first that is required, I think, to be able to kind of tackle some of these issues. But having that awareness alone, at least in my experience, when I came to a place, so like my dad passed away when I was 16, and years later, when I finally came to a place where I could just recognize, like you said, behavioral patterns start to change. And I'm like, oh, what's going on? But then like looking at that situation that happened, owning it to a degree and saying like, yeah, like that happened and it's okay. I feel this way. That lays that's probably, I would say, something close to 70, 80% of the work is just like recognizing that's why I'm feeling, accepting that, and then move forward. Like you said, a slight change. Yeah. And it needs to be talked about more, I think, or like understood. But it's really hard to give somebody that experience without them having that level of self-awareness.
Yeah, and it's okay to embrace your feelings. If you want to cry, cry. It's fucking doing for a reason. And like back to there's a human aspect. I'll say this to sport, right? So as a performance coach, whatever, you can get your athlete, strong, fit, blah, 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 structurally healthy, resilient, not a problem in your system. But if they leave your system a better human being than what they came in, I feel now that's doing your job as a strength and conditioning coach, as a high performance manager. That's super important these days.
Yeah. When's the last time you cried?
Good point. Enjoy?
Yeah, enjoy and sadness. It can be in anything.
Yeah, no, I had a moment in February for sure. Catching up with my brother and sister. Yeah, my brother said something quite profound actually, and it wasn't like him. He's normally pretty quiet, but he came out of why we all left as kids pretty early on in the piece from the parents from New Zealand. Yeah. I think I was first, my sister second, my brother third, right? And so left the parents there to grow up, fall in love again, which is great. But the reason was the parents set us up to leave New Zealand, to leave for something bigger, to leave and grow as a human being, as a person, to leave and grow more professionally in your profession, right? So they set us up perfect for that. So, there were points where I thought, I left my parents back there. I should have been a lot better being in contact. I should have visited them more, sort of blame myself a bit. And when they pass, you don't have that time to deal with it. Both parents passed pretty quickly, actually. So I always sort of beat myself up on that. And then my brother, his little nugget right there at dinner was goal. How do we cry? Then I had a good beer with him. It was good, and I felt so much more sort of relieved after that. I felt a bit of a load off my shoulders.
Yeah. You're talking about his son, right? Is that what you're saying?
No.
You were there, you saw him. Sorry, you said he left a little bit of a nugget. I thought you were talking about maybe his kid. Sorry.
No, it was just a good, he dropped a sort of bomb for us. It was like, for me anyway.
Oh, yes. Yeah, the words. I'm sorry. Yeah. Yes, I understand. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, no, that's deep. Thank you for sharing that. It's interesting how like the relationships over time, I think with our siblings, because when I was growing up, me and my sisters, so me and my next sister below me, she's 4 years separated. And kind of like you were saying a little bit, the separation there, like you're older, but you're not that much older. But there's just like this weird in between. You're going through life at kind of different stages where it's harder to connect. And me and her fought to the degree that, it was bad. Like
really
a sly of killing each other. Like we were just like, getting each other in trouble, cussing each other out behind each other's backs, just out to get each other type of situation. And then, when I went to college, I started to have like this come to Jesus moment, figuring out trying out things. I did all the kind of the quote unquote bad things you can do, came back around, and then she started experiencing those things. And, me as a 4-year-old, her brother, I was like, oh, you can't do this. Like, I'm trying to control her, because I did start to care for the first time about who she could become. And then after she went through that journey, luckily she came out the other side doing pretty well. She's married to a great guy, has our first nephew. Like, it's just a beautiful thing. But now we're much closer. And she says things sometimes that, like you said, that they drop that and then it just hits you right at home. And that's a beautiful relationship. I mean, especially after the parents do pass. So I have my mother still around, so I'm very fortunate to have that. But I can only imagine, like, after I have both of my parents gone, really the siblings is the only thing you have in that connection back to them, because they were there, they knew them, and they saw them. And yeah, it's a really special thing, I think, to invest in.
Yeah, and the older we get, you sort of want to gravitate back towards your family and your close friends, right? It's just a natural human instinct. Are you so were you quite protective of your sister?
So it's interesting. I am now, especially after my dad passed. So like up till 16, I really wasn't, because I always kind of took side with my dad a little bit on kind of the, the family feuds. My sisters were very mischievous and would get in trouble. And then my mom would, they would get in trouble and she'd be like, oh, how could anyone treat you that way? And I know full well, like, how I can treat people and how my sister can treat people, on the other side of that. But then after my father passed, like, because of my dad would say things to me like, when I'm gone, I want you to take care of the oil, or when I'm gone, you need to take care of the family. And I, being like 14 when he was saying this kind of stuff, and 15, I was really confused. Like, what are you even saying? Then it happened. And then I did become very protective, because I was like, oh, I do need to step up. But like, what 16-year-old knows what being a man really is? Not a freaking thing. So like, I became overly protective and in all the wrong ways. And now that I am older, 32, my sisters are 28, and the youngest one, she just turned 20. So like, I am very protective, and it's very hard now, actually, especially with my youngest sister who's 20. She's making some really crazy decisions with guys, and like, I'm trying to be there and be her friend and be like the most appropriate brother. At the same time, like, I hear about things that happen and I'm like, I just want to go kill the dude. Like,
oh, that's tough.
And it's like, so there's like, what level of protection is appropriate? I'm still trying to figure that out, to be honest.
Yeah, gotcha. That's a tough one.
Yeah,
I get the protectiveness. I'm fiercely protective of my nieces. I've got 3 of them. Yeah, and being so far away, right? You sort of, and it's all about guys, because we were like growing up, and
yeah, exactly.
You kind of figure out in a sneaky conversation, oh, who you dating, Katie? It's like, you get a name, you write the name down, get off a phone call, you go on Facebook or Instagram. Now you're like, the uncle sort of sends a message like, don't think about doing anything bad.
Yeah, you ever do anything? I know people in high places. The mafia is just a click away, buddy.
Oh, it's so bad. But yeah, to what extent, I like athletes as well. Like, they need to figure stuff out. Your younger sister needs to figure out herself and, come out what's right or wrong and grow from it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're a good brother.
It's interesting. Yeah. Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate that. I'm definitely trying. So I want to go back a little bit. You talked about post high school. You took some time off, I think, before university, and you went and backpacked Europe. I know from just a little bit of experience that traveling and doing that type of a thing, you learn a lot about yourself. What did you learn about yourself and just the world during that time period that kind of gave you the direction? Because you called your mom and said, oh, I want to go to, enroll me here and here. Like, what gave you that finalization?
Yeah, I figured out I was pretty resilient, and I could adapt pretty well. So you're basically living by yourself throughout Europe and where it might be. You got to figure out, living situation, transport situation, figure out a route. And along the way, you get to meet so many beautiful people, right? You're staying on these youth hostels, and you're in these dorms where it might be. So you're forced to get on, like playing team sport my whole sort of life. That was easy for me, and I'm quite a social person. So that was kind of cool. And so you start rubbing shoulders with, a pretty good vertical cross-section of age, profession, of people around the world in different cultures. So after 3 months, you learn quite a bit about, certain professions, certain cultures for sure, because everyone travels through Europe. And there's certain routes you do which are really common through Central Europe. So you tend to be a lot of people. You could travel with 5 days, they go off on a different route, and you pick up another group.
Bump into each other.
Yeah, it's very cool. but you've got to be open to have the conversations and learn and listen and ask the right questions, right? So you got to be naturally curious. So I learned a lot about professions, other people, right? So I thought, maybe I want to do this. It's like I really like sport. I want to work in professional sport. I think a physical therapist, it's going to be more one-on-one. I want to impact a bigger group, which I can as, human performance, whether it's through academy group, whether it's through the professional team. So that floated my boat more, the strength and conditioning side. So that's shaped me there, for that I doubt. So I thought, no to physical therapy. And nutrition was another one, which was super interesting for me. I thought if I doubled that up with, your exercise physiology degree, then it's going to be pretty good going into a professional sports team. Because back then it was like, it was only a couple of years professional rugby. So you didn't have the big budgets of, you got full-time nutritionists, you got 10 physios, you got 2 manual therapists, intern S&Cs, young S&Cs, senior S&Cs. So you're the man. Like, it's you. You do nutrition, you do strength and conditioning, long-term planning, you work with the coach, he's your best mate. You got one physio, probably full-time, you got some subsidiary physios, you bring a massage therapist in. Sometimes you get your hands on the players and pretend you do massage, so just pick up the gaps. I kid you not, I actually did a massage course to help them out.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You didn't enjoy that?
Yeah, I said no to the feet. It was as simple as that. I'd taken the piss.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, so you jack it all trades, right? And then, as the sport grew and the money came in, then you had the budget to get your strength and conditioning sort of assistant, you get some interns in, you have more physios, and get more toys and wearables. So it just grew naturally. But at the time, you had to do everything. Super interesting. Yeah, and then obviously moving to London, so I've definitely digressed here. I went straight to a very high-profile club, which is super rich, right? And the budget they had was ridiculous. So you're learning, it's now a 42-week season as opposed to like 15. You've got twice as many players you're looking after because you've got to do this rotation or, manage athletes, manage loads, and you've got 3 different competitions around Europe. So you learn your trade right there. New Zealand was bloody easy when I was there. Like, you think you know, but absolutely not. So the best thing I did...
Yeah, just the next level.
Yeah, professionally is heading over there. Then you can align with, these other peers who are just phenomenal at what they do in the physiology world, biomechanical world, mental performance world. So you learn a lot and you get these peer groups, and of course you go to conferences on that. So your learning curve was just huge, but you did have to learn on the job. I tried to figure it out first. It's a New Zealand way, right? If you don't know, try and figure it out first before putting your hand up and asking. If you fucking really don't know, put it up. Don't worry. Don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah.
If I think it's important. But, figure it out yourself first.
Yeah. That sounds like a very culturally relevant topic. Where does that come from, you think? Like that, just that grit mindset of like, you're going to work for it first and then put your hand up. Because I think that there's a balance, and I would probably agree more with this cultural aspect.
It's the New Zealand way for sure. And I think it comes when you're growing up, right? So New Zealand compared to the US is generally a pretty safe country to live in. Depends on some of your communities, but definitely is. So the parents can let your kids, whether you're 5, 4, 6, when it might be, just go away and play with the neighbours, and as long as you're back for dinner, you're good. They don't worry about you. But you've got other people's older kids, neighbours looking after you, other families, parents could be around in cul-de-sacs, keep an eye on you. There could be a sort of a pickup game of rugby if you're on the park. It's there's always people looking out for you because it's such a community-driven culture. So I think you sort of are centered to your own. Then when it comes to sport, my generation, your fathers are pretty hard people, right? So they'll push you out in the rugby paddock, and you're 5 or 6, you're trying to learn how to tackle in a game. Wasn't sort of tagged then, and then you get run over, someone scores a try. Why ever we cry, the old man will tell you, get back up, have another crack. So he won't tell you how to do it. You learn yourself. So that was kind of indoctrinating, I think, in most sports, not just rugby. So you grew up with that attitude for sure. You know, it's always hands up, not out. Yeah.
Do you think like, are you married
I'm not married.
or do you have kids?
No.
Okay. If you did, or let's just say like your nieces or your nephews, would you treat them in the same way, or do you have a different type of approach, a different level of intensity for that?
You love this. I'll treat them the same way. So my brother, I think I told you, is a bit introverted and soft. I mean that in the nicest possible way, but I was always scared as son. This is Jeremy's my godson. Sorry, he's mid 20s, barely. I thought he's going to be soft growing up. If he's got my dad as my brother as his dad, then he's in trouble. So I tried from afar just to sort of navigate him a bit better, and when it comes to girls or whatever, or in sport, but you need to be present to make change, I feel. You know what I mean? But he is who he is. He's definitely not a hard kid, but he's not soft either. He's somewhere in between. Yeah. But ultimately he's a good kid.
Yeah. It's good to have a balance. I mean, I don't know where I am on the spectrum. It's so interesting because especially now as I've gotten older and some of my best friends have started to have kids, I would pride myself on being more of a hard person. And I think in a lot of things I have that mentality, but at the same time, as I've been getting older, now that they're having kids, I say like, oh yeah, like when I have a kid, I'm just going to like, if there's bleeding, rub it in the dirt, they'll be fine. That type of mentality, like get them out there and push them out. But now that I have a little nephew and some of my friends who I've become very close with their kids, like I don't know, like if they're walking next to a curb that's like this big, I'm like, so I'm like trying to like figure out how am I really going to react when I have children or whenever I get to guide my nephews and nieces and stuff like that. So it's interesting how, I think I'm one way and then I have a tendency to act another.
Curious about your fatherhood. Yeah. But you put hardness into context, right? To your point.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
It's like don't give up. If it gets hard, give it a crack, right? Just keep going. Find that dark place, find out your sort of limit, and you probably can go a bit more on from that, Your body's actually stronger than your mind. Your mind wants to give up first and everything folds after it.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Like even recently, so I recently started, for the past 2.5 years, I've been coached. I have had a coach for triathlon. And when I first got into it, like I'm a very driven individual. It doesn't take a lot to motivate me. I'm not going to not do a workout just because I don't have a coach. However, there's this interesting dynamic that I've learned about myself, like just because of the complexities with my dad's situation and the way that for the longest time, I wanted a male figure in my life to just tell me exactly what to do. And I would do it with all veracity. I would do it better than anybody could do it. And I realized that there's some strength to that, but also a weakness side where, I'm willing to go and do what other people want me to do, even though I kind of know, maybe that isn't the best, or I don't know. And then there's like this internal fight. So anyway, I've been self-coached now, again, since the beginning of, it's like the end of last month, basically. And I realized like I'm assigning myself these workouts. I know what I'm capable of. But like I was swimming the other night in the pool and I was doing some tempo sets and I swam 500 yards and I was doing like a 119 average per 100. And I was like, okay, well, I know I can do faster than this. I'm going to shoot for a 6:30, like overall time. Anyway, I ended up doing it much faster. I averaged like a 115, 116 per 100. And when I was able to swim the best and the fastest was once I literally I'm starting to now figure out how to shut the mind off to an extent and just focus on the movements of the muscles, like literally almost visualize my quads firing and my arms moving and stuff. And then you just get into this state where it's like you're nailing it. You're not feeling the pain as much. And same on the bike this morning. Like I did a really hard threshold session and I know that I can push harder because it's every time I have interval sets, my last interval is always the hardest and I always do it the most, even though I'm most fatigued. I'm like, man, I gotta rearrange the wires in here somehow because if I can continue to do that every time, like I need them all to be at peak. So anyway,
that's so good. What about with your running? Do you have the same mindset? Like just feel your foot contact, what's happening left, first, right, whereabouts in your foot are you contacting? What's your pelvis doing? You sort of engage when you have your foot strike. What's your breathing doing? Is it rhythmic?
Yeah. Yeah. Running. It's interesting. Running comes way more naturally to me for some reason. And I think it's because I have this one experience when I was really young. We did this 1 mile run when I think I was in like fifth grade, and I like smoked the eighth graders. Now I buried myself, but I like left them in the dust, and I had asthma as a kid. So I was really hurting. But I felt the power that I was able to generate, and it felt like nothing else. So I would have dreams after that where there's like I was running. You know that feeling when you like push and then you go neuromuscular, you're going to the next level, and it's like this feels so good, but it hurts so bad. But I you can just feel everything working.
So good, yeah.
So running for me, like I can even in the past couple months, actually, I've really changed my running form, which I didn't think could happen. But I'm running a lot faster now with less effort, and running just seems like I don't stress about it. So it's probably that's why it comes a bit more natural. I still work hard, but it's interesting. Like the mental capacities, your heart rate can be at the same level and your breathing can be at the same level across all three sports, but different times of day and different sports, they feel more difficult than the same amount of power output.
Yeah. What did you change running wise?
So I spent a week with my, at the time, coach, Nicholas Chase. He's a great guy. And nothing against him that I have kind of moved on to do my own self-coaching. But he watched me run, and I asked him some feedback, and he gave me some feedback that a lot of people had been giving me. It's like, oh, you kind of run behind yourself. You're more protected. And, and he brought it around in a psychological way where I realized, like, yeah, like I do protect myself a lot in this sport. Like, where I'm running behind myself. And I tend to do that in certain areas of life that I'm uncomfortable, where I, try to exude confidence, but I may not actually have that confidence. So I started leaning forward more, and it was uncomfortable, but it's amazing the body's ability to get used to that falling forward a little bit more, that mid of the foot, front of the foot, striking the ground. And so I started focusing on that. And after a few weeks, like it's become to feel more natural. But yeah, I don't know what he did really that changed it, but it was just that conversation where all these seeds that people had planted over time, like it just sprouted and like it clicked, and I was like, oh, this, I can change this. Like, yeah.
So you either ready to receive it, or his delivery of how he messaged it to you was probably packaged a wee bit different.
Yeah.
It worked for you.
Yeah. And what's so amazing too, if I may go on this, because no one's asked me about this and I'm just kind of verbalizing it for the first time to someone. It's really fascinating to me because I don't think that most people can have these experiences unless you do this type of a sport for more than a few years, because you learn enough. It's just like you said, the behavioral recognition for you, you're like, oh man, something's not right. It takes a lot of time that you put into something where you have that level of awareness physically and mentally, spiritually, so that you can like say like, oh, maybe I can change this, or maybe there is something that can be done further. Because so many times I think I've gone through life and been like, there's nothing I can do. Like, this is the outcome, that's going to happen. And then we just like, we draw ourselves in that box and there's no way to get out of it, which sounds so cliche. But now, multiple years in sport or anything, you start to really learn that. And which is huge for me because now, I come from a place of not really wanting to, it's been very hard for me to stick with something for a long time. Like college was the first thing I did. And it was only because my wife, she was like, don't drop out, don't drop out, don't drop out. And I'm glad I did, because it proved to me, oh, I can do something to finish.
Yeah, that's the point of college, half it, isn't it? Being able to finish something you started.
Yeah, yeah. So I can tell you have a great passion for this, because the way you're asking questions and feeding into my story a little bit, like I can see a little bit of your art and form of what you do. Is that the thing that you enjoy most about what you do? Is that?
Yeah, absolutely. Coaching, purely coaching. It's funny, because a lot of my work at the moment is, and you'll get this, it's, whether it's the curse of COVID or what it might be, is remote and online. And I'm definitely a field person. I definitely like the energy of people, whether it's 1 or 20. So you feed forward, feedback energy. It's pretty cool. And you can pick up, I'm a visual person, first and foremost, so I can pick up a lot. So I do need like these aspects of coaching. So if I just digress a bit, the sport I work in now, which is the pointy end of professional sailing. It's like Formula One water pretty much, right? So these 12 countries competing every month. So you fly in, fly out. So that's the sort of the window I get to work with people, fly back out, and sort of, the glue in between with 3 to 4 weeks. I've picked up, some athletes who are based here, or, a couple of wealthy people, just so I can keep coaching, have the interaction, keep sharp, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I think it's super important to, if you're a coach, just to keep that contact time as much as possible. Different people as well. So I don't just do your pro athletes in person. So fortunate to have some super interesting people who could, if you know me, they need a good story. They have to live a good life and just be genuinely, no dickhead policy, good people. But the good story part's phenomenal, which goes back to me traveling before university and just hearing these people's stories and different cultures and how they live in a different country and what their philosophy is on whatever it might be. So I think I'm just carried that through to who I want to coach. So I'm lucky enough I can choose who I want to coach these days. But
yeah, that's a beautiful thing. Do you think if you go back 24 years ago, prior to this experience that you have now, do you think you'd ever would have guessed that this is where you would land or where you would be on the path to?
No, absolutely not. Like rugby, well, a couple of things, right? Rugby is sort of, that was my passion, and it's probably going to be a mainstream American sport. So my last year, or second last year, in was Saracens Rugby, the pro club I was with in London. Get a phone call from a good mate of mine, Graham Lowe. He was a great mentor at university. He was 2 years ahead of me. He was one of the first, innovators in strength conditioning professional rugby. He was phenomenal. So he was a leader, not a follower, right? So lucky enough to have him as a mentor. So long story short, he went on to do the All Blacks for 4 years, then Oracle Team USA, which is the America's Cup team, head of performance there. And that's what he was doing at the time he called me. He just picked up the phone and said, mate, what do you think of sailing? I said, mate, shit, I can't believe you're still in that sport. Half jokingly. It goes, well, I'm not, I've left, and I put your name forward. So this guy, Jimmy Spittle, the CEO of the team, is going to give you a call and blah, blah, blah. So the rest is...
Oh, that's so funny.
The rest is history. I wasn't looking at leaving. London was my home. I got citizenship there. It was like, this is great. Loving it. So...
That's amazing. I'm going to ask another question, but it's interesting you said Jimmy Spittle, because when I was doing research for your episode, like to figure out what questions I might ask, he was one of the first guys I came across in the sailing, and I think it may have been through a connection of your Instagram or something like that. So I've already reached out to him to ask him if he'd be on. We'll see. But yeah,
I'll give you a treat. Sorry.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm looking forward to hopefully him getting my message. I'm sure he gets messaged a ton. But yeah, so sailing, like what does sailing mean to you now? Like what is, I guess, compare and contrast it between like triathlon, rugby, and sailing. Like they're all so different. There are some parallels, but where do you sit on the spectrum of, oh, this is probably my favorite?
I'll give you one parallel and one difference.
Okay.
So when I came into professional sailing, 2010, I believe, the boats have changed from these monohulls, which are all about skill. You didn't have to be that fit, right? To these flying 72-foot multi-hulls with a bloody wing. 9 out of 11 people, 9 out of 11 athletes had to be physical. So, and that's one of the catches, like why Jimmy wanted me to bring. When you train rugby players, they're so resilient. They're fit. They're strong. They're powerful. They can move, accelerate, decelerate. Dance around someone in a phone box pretty easy. So, having that knowledge and bringing it over to the cup, because we need to get these athletes up. Sooner than later. It's we had 3 years left for the cup. So when I got in, it's such a low level. The training age, I call it, was so low, from about at least 80-85% of the 22 people, 24 people here who I had. The funniest thing was, right, a lot of these people had never run across an 8-meter surface area that's moving, or on land, because it was just a monohull. You stay in the same bloody spot. You're 1 meter by 1 meter square. So, okay, let's check out movement quality and patterns. So, I did a couple of rugby drills. I'm just going, what the hell is going on here? It's like same arm and side. It was just Bambi on ice. It was just the funniest thing. It's okay, I've got a bit of work to do here. So the good thing is, it's like I knew I could make a difference, and I knew they could progress really quickly and get to a very high level. So, I think for sure, like me coming in from outside of sailing, having outside do you look, not being tainted by other strength conditioning coaches who are in sailing, what it might be, is super healthy. So for sure, I stepped up a level, probably globally regards to strength conditioning being more recognised. Now I get into triathlon, sorry, and it was the same. So when I came in, it was like, wow, they think they know what they're doing.
Single plane of motion.
Oh, yes, right. So there's a lot of things going on, like, their strength at the time. I was lucky enough to work with Matt Dixon, actually. I had 5 as pro triathletes I did strength with straight after the 213 Cup for a year. And they weren't too bad, but as a general population, they were doing very high rep, very sort of physical therapy type exercises for strength, which I found pretty odd because strength has a certain rep range, set range. You do it over progressive blocks. You revisit it during the season. These are your key lifts you're working on. Has to be touched on that body part at least twice a week to make a difference, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the knowledge and training age for me for such an endurance sport was pretty low. So that's the sort of parallels to when I started with sailing to when I sort of got immersed with triathletes. Because they're super resilient people, right? Then to your point, you're in sort of one plane, right? So you're always, if you're not doing lateral hip rotator work or moving laterally, like whether it's mobility work as well or sort of agility work, you're more likely to get injured, right? So if you're not sorting your bloody hips out laterally as you are posterior chain, then it could become an issue. Tighten those hips up. So there was that. Then the big difference in sports, and this is including triathlon as well, is the culture. So in rugby and most team sports, especially rugby, it's known for their culture, for their group, for their familyness, togetherness. You fight on the pitch together, you look after your mate on your left and right. You've got his back off the pitch as well. You pick up the phone, figure out how he's doing after the game, at a shit game. So it's really good. It's really tight. Everyone makes everyone else accountable. It's all internally driven. Fast forward to sailing, and if you look at the where they come from, it's more 1 to 2 people boat. Now they're thrust into a team. So you're doing like college sailing on dinghy type boats, being suddenly in a team environment, right? So they could be pretty good, could be coming from the Olympics, but they don't know how to behave in a team environment. They don't know the dynamics. They just don't get it. What they don't know, right? So for me, one of the big things was teaching them culture, building a culture. I'm a very big culture creator. So that was really good with the Cup when I first got involved in San Francisco with professional sailing. So just building that. So you take what you learn in rugby and the team stuff, you apply it to a slightly different sort of cattle and sport, but the principles are pretty much the same, right? And there's plenty of research and books on it. And then obviously with triathlon, it's a pretty much individual person sport, right? Matt Dixon was really good at trying to get a team culture with a lot of group training with the pros especially, which he was pretty successful at. So he ran a really good program, and he's seen the big picture, right? And he was good with humans, the human aspect of it, not necessarily the numbers all the time, your recovery numbers, making sure you've got to do the 0 to 2-hour run or what it might be. So it's you got to nail it at this intensity or this zone. He was a feel man, which is great, which I think is healthy for the sport because it is number driven, it's metric driven, and you've got to have that in your sport. I get it, but at some point, it's a human element. We're all guilty of you're looking at your recovery score, your battery score from whatever wearable you're wearing, right? So shit, I can't train today. Battery level 7.
I'm done.
Well, I'm done. What are you gonna do? You got to take it for a grain of salt, right? There's a lot of context to this, but in general, a lot of people get too tied up on these numbers.
Yeah, that was the biggest thing that I think my two coaches ago taught me, because it's so interesting when you come into something fresh and you have a lot of potential, that you've got that hockey stick graph that like the growth is just exponential until it starts to taper, and then when things didn't come as easier, it was like, oh, the end of the world. So even with Whoop and stuff, I quit wearing a Whoop because I realized it affected me more mentally and probably ended up affecting me more physiologically than anything else, because I would look at that, and if it didn't say green, especially before a race, I'd be like, oh, the day's gone, and it's like,
I'm gonna fail.
It's like, that's not, there's so many moving pieces in the human body that, as much as of the data that we do have with the wearables, the core temperature, the HRV, everything that you could possibly track, there's still so many things that I think transcend all of those numbers for the ability, like you're saying, the mind to overcome, and the body can do way more because of the limitation of the mind is what I'm saying. Like it doesn't really matter. Like at the end of the day, if you want to go out there and you're in the right mindset and you want to push, like you can push.
It probably should be a psychometric test, right? It's like recruitment for a team, for example. Like, here's an example. Your Garmin battery score says 7. That's your training session. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
A, B, C, D.
Yeah. Make them choose before you get on the
test
team.
for grit, right? It's pretty hard to test that. But, but yeah, people get tied up. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Some people should not have a wearable. Simple as that.
Yeah. No, I think I'm one of those people. I only wear it now for seriously only when I'm doing the exercise, just to make sure I'm in about the zone. Because there is a lot of, I don't know if you know who Mark Allen is.
Yep.
So I talked to Mark. Yeah, so he's obviously a legend. I had him on and talked to him at length about his kind of thoughts and philosophy, and I think he's a little bit more controversial than some people in terms of he's more on the side of the spectrum of more rest is better, taking time off. Because I asked him do you think people are training too hard today, even with all the the science we have, and he said yes. And I can't pull together 6 studies and a bunch of data to show you that that's necessarily the case, but at the same time, I think being able to know when and when not to do something based on what's actually going on that you feel inside rather than what's going on up here, that's a skill that I don't think many people have managed to hone.
Yeah, there should be a module for it, right? Coaches should do some course for that to manage the mental side of athletes. And I work on a bit of a bell curve. You've got the outliers, right? So general population of, say, your catchment or your team, young training age, right? Older, they've done too much volume. So you manage them differently in regards to volume, more rest, potentially, but build those ones up. The bastards in the middle, they're good, resilient, throw everything at them.
Yeah, it's interesting.
You can't sort of pigeonhole everyone.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, everybody's so unique and different. Which is why everything the Norwegian method that gets thrown around all the time in triathlon right now. It's okay, guys, we're all different. Let's just take a break here for a second.
Yeah, you can't see the forest for the trees.
Exactly. So sailing is where you're spending a lot of your time now. You're doing a lot of the individual athletics with people because you said you get to kind of coach who you want to. Would you ever go to something more extreme? Like if somebody called you up for Formula One, do you think you'd jump over into that arena as well?
No, I think you're just fluffing there with it. I think the mental side and loading, cognitive loading, is sort of an interest in me at the moment in regards to, I think, the way wearables are getting sort of developed and going. I think that's sort of watch the space. I think that's got a lot of aspects to it, to be honest. Sailing, believe it or not, the boats we're in now, there's a lot of aspects of Formula One. So flight controller, wind trimmer, driver doing, they're solving math problems while doing physics while trying to race a boat and get the sort of natural skill. It's crazy. So, 3 or 4 out of the 6 athletes will come off after 3 races of the day, cognitively fried, physically fine. So it's how you manage that, how do you recover that, what are the tools you've got to use for that individual. So it's super interesting, that side of things. So looking at that deeper and deeper, we have a partnership with Red Bull, which is great. So we can utilize their resources like their mental performance coaches, which are really handy. So most of the athletes do utilize the mental performance coaches, physiologists, physical therapists, biomechanists, you name it. So I try and take a group of athletes out there every other month, do a little mini camp, which is good.
How do you? Well, what are some of the practical things that you do for cognitive repair or recovery? Like you said, you're mentally fried. Is it just time off, or is there a specific protocol that you guys are shooting for?
Yeah, it depends on the person, but for sure, breath work, some form of meditation and sauna if we have access to that. All your sleep hygiene. Just been talking to trialing out a tool unit called Brain Tap. I'm not sure if you heard
Never
it.
heard
So
of
it
it.
just basically
No,
unscrambles your brain through sound, light, wave, a few other bits and pieces. So you've got a headset as well as light and frequency.
sounds like a mushroom
No,
trip.
dude, it'd be pretty handy. But it has all sorts of programs. So I found out that unit actually, kind of wearing 3 months ago, I was in Bermuda and got a couple of triathlete mates there who've been using it. And they swore by it. Like, I know them inherently pretty well. So, okay, there's something in it. So, quite a bit deeper, spoke to the right people at BrainTap. And so we're going to trial it out. And I think this is a great sport. Yeah, so the big thing is like, ultimately you want to get to the state of they can get a great night's sleep to prepare for the next race day, right? So work back from that. What can you implement as in your toolbox for that person who's actually might be different from Y to X. So this thing just unscrambles your brain. So a 20-minute program. There's a lot of programs, don't get me wrong, but just I'm going to simplify this to a point where there's no white noise, there's no afterthoughts, none all these internal sort of cloudiness and drivers from all the data you're getting from the racing and information overload. So, and that can get a good night's sleep ultimately. To a point where there's a performance aspect, can do it before they go out. But anyway, the point is having a play, see if it's sort of, we can apply it to the sport, to individuals, it's practical to use, it's quick, and then find out if it's going to work. How do we measure it? Can we measure sort of heart rate variability, sleep, scores, you name it. So they've got a wearable that comes with it. Our guys got Garmin as well as Wolf at the moment, so we'll figure that one out. So I think we can just get some longitudinal data over time to figure that out.
Yeah.
And obviously do a subjective as well. They know, fully how they feel when they sort of, present in the morning, what their readiness scores are. So I think you can't hide from the subjective. That's super important. As much as the objective measures we get. To my point, like having a conversation with someone just because you know this athlete's sort of energy down and finding out what it is.
Yeah.
And then figuring out sort of change your plan or how to help that person from there. So
yeah, the old-fashioned method of communication sometimes works best.
For sure. So the cognitive thing's interesting. But to your point, Formula One would be super interesting.
Is that on your end? Do you aspire to do something like that, or are you pretty content with where you are and what you're doing?
Content, because if you look at the US in general, we have a lot of sailors here, but they're kind of misguided a bit. They go through a college system which is kind of broken for their sport, and they come out of it maybe a worse sailor, or maybe okay. Half it's to do with the coaching, half it's to do with the the performance programs they're on, and each college is different. Don't get me wrong. Then after that, where do they go? They want to start an Olympic campaign. America's Cup, Sail GP, the league I work in, and it's like there's no pathway. But how do you track those athletes we think are pretty good, sort of a recruitment side? And from my point of view, like, what does human performance mean? What does it mean to be a professional athlete? What does nutrition mean? Hydration mean? Fueling, strength. So get them at a younger age. I want to sort of get involved with youth sailing, sort of US sailing, sort of that level. And college, find out what's broken, implement a system. So when we get them in 3 years' time, this cattle will be have a certain standard of or certain level of strength and conditioning, knowledge about fueling, knowledge about hydration, know their bodies very well, super competent in the gym, very resilient athletes, right? So part of my role is recruitment as well. So between myself and our sailing coach, we must have reached out to at least 50 people recently, or athletes. So we're looking at sort of making our team younger, bringing in these young trialists, like identifying right now who could be great for this team in like 1, 2, 3, 4 years times on the years down the track. So, and the big highlight for me was like how under-conditioned and low on strength knowledge these athletes were. And they shouldn't be. They're like 22, 21, 24. So you look at team sports, we have academy systems, they have pathways, right? So at 14, 15, you get put in these systems, and the time they come to, say, a professional rugby team or a football team, they're super competent in the gym. extremely robust and fit, right? So now you're just fine-tuning that athlete to the finer points. And you can add your, your culture part on, the human part on, but, they're actually really good athletes by the time you get them, and they're like 20.
Wow.
So there's no excuse these sailors, right? So the mindset's got to be this. You're an athlete first. Sailing just happens to be your sport. You're an athlete first. Soccer, football just happens to be your sport, if you know what I mean. So I think changing that mindset, making sure you educate them, and sort of triathlon's a bit like this, educate them on what it is. Yeah. So I've got 5 triathletes I work with. You're decent amateurs, to be honest. So I enjoy working for them.
Yeah.
Because they kind of need more help. They're very thankful. But like any program, you've got to get buy-in from the athlete and say, okay, this is why we're doing strength or these exercises or this block, and this is what it should improve, is going to improve. There's the importance to revisit it again in these blocks during the season. So have a look at their calendar. What does their coach put in there? Don't get me wrong, it's important to speak to the coach, get buy-in as well.
Sure.
Because the coaches aren't that knowledgeable when it comes to that. And it's like, okay, I think you've got these B races here. So I think this is a really good block to revisit strength again. Because you can't do a 12-week of strength and then that's it. Do any form of maintenance for the season, you're just going to decrease. Because we've identified and agreed on, both of us, that, strength does help performance.
Yeah.
Because of X, Y, Z. So we're brought into that concept. Where's the best place to sacrifice your running volume, or you might be your cycling volume, your overall volume, so we can pick up the strength volume, if that makes sense, and just be a bit more focused and direct on that. Bank it again, get that foundation up again, and then we're good for the next 3 months. Here's your next revisit, and then we taper off to your bigger races.
Yeah.
So just understanding that periodized plan, where to put those strength blocks in, or what it might be, where to dial back. What are the exercises that's going to work? What are you trying to focus on? More power output in the bike, be more efficient on the run. So, having that conversation first and foremost with the athlete, outlining your sort of big picture plan, getting the buy-in, and then talking to the triathlon coach and getting their buy-in, because you're pointless if you can't convince that person, right?
That's leadership. Yeah, you gotta have that buy-in no matter what you're doing, for sure.
Yeah, but that's generally pretty good, because I don't really know a great deal about the point is for a coach to bring in these experts, whether it's nutrition, physical therapy, strength.
Yeah.
If you're a good coach, you just had really good people around you, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I went through a whole stint of, go for it.
No, you're good. Yeah, and communication's huge. So build your team.
Yeah, 100%. I went through a bit of a trying to figure out the whole strength and conditioning thing, because I realized when I started, because I really like lifting, and I did like the whole 23andMe genetic testing thing, and it came back with like, oh, your genetics are common in Olympic power athletes. So I was like, of course they are. So let me go get in there. But I really enjoy, like, especially with legs, like squatting. When I lift heavy, there's this feeling, especially if I haven't been in the gym for a while, like where you can feel almost the muscle fibers like rip all the way down to there's just the base of where it connects. Like that feeling just feels really good. And then you're walking out and you feel like your legs are huge. But I realized after doing that, like 2 or 3 days after that, my biking, I would just it would feel so much different. It's like I had my whole leg to use now for whatever reason. And so, but then I got a little, I don't know what's the word to use, a little excited, and it hurt my back because I was lifting too much. I didn't have the greatest form, and then I wasn't working all the other, different sets of muscles that kind of stabilize everything. But it's a hard balance to try to strike, I think, within triathlon, especially for professionals, because you're training anywhere from a light week of 20 hours, and some people are going crazy hours. So yeah,
incredible, aren't they? Incredible. Just the mindset for volume. The resilience to get all this volume, it's just phenomenal. They love it. But weird, man.
It is
in a
weird.
Good sense. Yeah.
Mentally
they fascinate me. But to your point, like, what they think strength is in general for athletes. It's what it really is. And to your point there, it's like you've got to figure out how hard to push yourself. So we're trying to work, say, 5 to 3 is your classic rep range, or the strength, for example. So we're doing squats, right? So you need a phase to prep them to squat heavy. So movement prep phase, and then here's your 4, maybe 5-week block of that experience or progressive overload to building that sort of key lift out, right?
Mm-hmm.
But getting their mindset of like, go on that point, that 1 rep just before fail, that's pretty hard if they haven't been there before.
Yeah. Because
They
it's
just
just
don't
such a
know.
different feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to go, to my point, you've got to fail at some point on a key lift safely. I think that's super important. Until you do that, you don't know your RM or true RM. Yeah, you don't know when your failure it's about to come out.
Mm-hmm.
And as you know, right, I know if I could throw a bunch of load on a bar, right, do X amount of reps, I'll know exactly after a 1-4 rep, if I can do that next one, I'm going to rack it up because I know I can't do the next one.
Yeah.
You should be so in tune with your body on every lift you do, where the failure point is and when to pull back there. And it's not training to fail all the time. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
You can get strength gains, to a failure. Don't get me wrong there. So it's like, you've got to learn though where that limit is.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Well, there's so many things I could go into with that, and I'll probably have to have you on for another conversation because that one fascinates me because it's not a very popular one. Don't get me wrong, a lot of people are doing strength training, but doing it for what I would think is maybe proper. Again, I'm not super experienced, but it doesn't seem like it's that common yet. But
yeah, work in progress. It's exciting space, to be honest.
Yeah, it really is. But I want to shift gears a little bit because I know time's valuable, and I probably should let you go here soon. But I want to ask you a couple more questions. Yeah, yeah, in Miami, I'm sure it is.
I had to turn the aircon off because it was noisy for you.
Oh, yeah. Well, we'll try to wrap it before too long.
Oh, you're good.
So I was looking on your Instagram, and you had this black and white photo. I think it may have been a couple of years ago, or maybe not so far back. But you were sitting next to an elderly woman, and you were talking about how it was just an inspirational person to meet, and it was an honor or something like that. And then there was a hashtag like spiritual. Do you know what photo I'm referring to?
Yeah, it was this year actually. So it was basically an Indian guy, businessman up in Newport, who I trained. So one of those special people who has a really good life story, and that's his mum. And Indians have these genes, they just live forever. Dude. So unfortunately, her husband, he was about 90, died about a month before that. And I met her before, obviously. So she obviously flew into Newport with Jay's his name. Who's mid-50s. But she's known in her village as a spiritual one. She has this sense, right? Her English isn't great. She just has this sense of people. You know when you come across someone that had this energy you're drawn towards? Mm-hmm. She's that with everyone. Even animals, I kid you not. Wow. Animals would come up to her, like the dogs, the cats, you name it. But anyway, so he's one of my favourite people. I've been training him for 3 years. Life-changing for him, as he'd put it. So, he went through a great journey himself regards to knowing his body, health and wellness. He's been sober for about 20 years now. Wow. So he's gone through that, and he's all about if you know Indians, they're all about family. And for me, with your dad and that, so that's important for me is the Indians bring you into their family. They want you in there, right? So he was very special, their family, for me on that one. But I got to know her. She's one of the most spiritual persons I've come across regards to just having that energy and feel. So amazing family. And, I'm a bit spiritual myself. That comes from my mother's side. Yeah. So if you met her and she'd have these seances with her friends, or she'd do a Ouija board now and again. She had sort of sensed, the spiritual world. So without being over the top. So it's definitely a bit of that sort of I inherited with some different experience. I might go into another show, but
yeah, I was going to ask, are you a religious person? But I guess that answers it. You're not really religious, but you're spiritual?
Ish, yeah. Yeah. I have a bit of that, so...
Yeah. Well, I'll have to dive in. Yeah, we'll dive on that one in another episode for sure. I'm curious to hear about that and talk about it.
But yeah, so Jay was next to his mum and like they're super tight. So it was just a good capture of a moment, which meant a lot to me.
Yeah, that's awesome.
By two humans which had a decent influence on my immediate life in Newport.
Yeah, good man, awesome.
Certainly.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. It is special to have those connections. It really makes a big difference, I think, in the different parts of life we go through, the people that we meet. It can add so much flavor, and whenever we look back on memories and reflect, to have those moments, like that's what really adds, I think, the savoriness to life that we can live with throughout the ages.
Yeah. Do you have like this one person as like a mentor or someone you'll go to for pretty much 90% of your questions, or whether it's life or work?
Yeah, I have several.
Yep.
I did. Yeah. One of them, his name is Jared. I hope he doesn't care that I'm calling him out a little bit, but I met him in college. He came to speak to one of our classes, and he was this very entrepreneurial type. At the time, I didn't know what entrepreneur was, but was very drawn to him. He gave this whole presentation on what's called the Beehive Method, where it's like you want to live 45 minutes outside the city so you can have all the nature, grow your own food, but like go inside the city, meet the people, network with them. Like that's how you kind of live this lifestyle. Anyway, he gave me the kick in the pants because I told him the first idea I ever had for a business. And he gave me the kick in the pants, like, oh, well, go start a website and, social media and that stuff. And like, at that point, you're legitimate. And because of that spur, like it led me on a journey where I ended up going to China and doing manufacturing for this small business that I created. And he's been instrumental in so many key life experiences that I've had since about 18, 19 years old. And now I'm 32. And he's definitely become like one of those figures. And I hope and I wish everybody could have that type of an experience, at least with one person in their life, because it's so crucial, I think, to how we progress as a human.
Yeah. And I think outside your parents as well, growing up, if you have one or two sort of elderly influence, whether it's an uncle or friends of the family, I think that's super relevant, super important to shape your career potentially, and what you want to study at university. And it's
special. So why do people call you Oscar?
Oscar Milifanovic. Polish golfer. It's just a nickname from university, my first year. You play sport or you get in groups of, especially men.
Yeah.
If they like you, you get given a nickname.
Yeah.
I've had many, don't get me wrong. So bear in mind, I was traveling for 3 years before I started university, so I was a wee bit older. And if you want to know the full detail, there's a frat house on university. It's on Melbourne Street. It was an annual event called the Melbourne Street Golf Classic, which is 18 drinking holes in this massive house. And it's invite only, 10 people a year. So I got on well with this group who lived there. So I got invited. So basically what happens, you get a form guide, your golfing form guide, your nickname, and then a story about something that's happened at university. They knew a story, but didn't have a name for me. So Oscar Milifanovic was the actual name, Polish golfer. Had a one-night stand event wrong. I got threatened with my life. She broke in.
Oh, boy.
I had to get the police involved in the end because there's another incident happened the week after. So, so long story short, it came out, Oscar Milifanovic, been under the police protection scheme in Queenstown for 2 years, my first year back on the golf tour. It's a more elaborate story. The guy who wrote it's like an English major and a bit of a poet, so it's just an elaborate, awesome story and read, right? He's a great orator as well. So, and it's stuck. So, and my mentor, Graham Lowe at university, so I kind of followed his footsteps. So, so the first professional rugby club I worked with at Hurricanes or the Lions, he'd worked there and about to leave. So I get introduced as Oscar to everyone. And there were people in this organisation when I left for London after 3 years, didn't know my name was Craig McFarlane.
I guess that could cause some problems, but that's awesome at the same time.
Yeah, as you know, sport's a small world, so it's just stuck. And then Oz is just the shortened version of it.
Oz, nice.
Yeah, I think, my mother was the only person who called me Craig for, a hot minute there.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah, Scott told me I need to ask that question.
He's got plenty of nicknames, by the way.
Yeah, I'm sure he does. Well, cool, man. I really, first of all, thank you for coming on the show and allowing me to just dive into your life. First time getting to know you is really awesome. Lots of good things to share. In closing, I'd love if you could give some advice to people who have a hard time like trying to figure out what their life purpose is or life meaning. And I think that you alluded to it some in that finding a love to do hard things is part of that. But how does someone find that love to do hard things?
Yeah, I think just being open, right? So first thing, don't beat yourself up because you don't know what your life purpose is. You go through 50, years or so and you still don't really know your purpose on this planet. So just be open to the fact that that's a thing. You may not know just yet. It's a bit of a journey. And secondly, be open to meeting people and who you don't necessarily hang out with, your close friends and that, but just talk to some random people. And it could be from a different country or it could be from a different city, and just hear their story. And you'd be surprised what you pick up. You sort of the nuggets again, they just keep dropping in when you sort of meet different people. So yeah, I think sort of diversify yourself out a bit, and to your point, find some grit, find some hard work, just be open to working hard, and don't be a dickhead.
Yeah,
You'll come across, life is going to be good to you.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, thank you so much, Craig. Or Oscar. Thank you so much, Oscar. Really appreciate it.
Seth, my pleasure, mate. No, thank you for having me. I had a great conversation. I went in not knowing what the podcast is going to be about, so I was happy with that.
Yeah.
I just had fly. I could have messaged you or called you, but this is good.
I'm glad you didn't. Thank you so much to Oscar for coming on the podcast today and for sharing a bit about his life. It was really interesting to hear. I know I say that every time, but it really is a fascinating journey that I'm on, getting to interview a lot of these people. So I thank you for being here. And I thank Oscar for the advice that he gave us all with wanting to do hard things. Just don't be a terrible person. Try to do good things. That's really what it all gets boiled down to. You can do hard things, put yourself out there, take the little steps, and it will turn out okay. If you are watching or listening on any of the platforms such as YouTube or on Twitter or on Instagram or listening on Spotify, if you wouldn't mind liking, commenting, subscribing, reviewing, any and all of those things continue to help grow this podcast and show. And if you want to sign up for a newsletter, you can do that at the stupidquestions.show website. There's also a link in the description. Make sure to check out all of those links for stuff that Oscar is doing as well. All right. Thank you so much. And we'll catch you in the next one.